It's early morning in the Bay Area, as I mentioned, so bear with me here, but I'm super excited to talk to you all, about how to think about allocating your design teams quarterly. As I mentioned, trying to give these teams more focus, longevity, room for growth, some tips for your own teams about how you might also do the same. So we'll just dig in. Before I start, I want to note, while I've presented this a number of times, it's always evolving. So I'd love your insights on how this should grow. I won't be able to touch on every single detail today. We'll have, I think, a few minutes for Q&A at the end, and I'll also be around for the panel session later in the day. So feel free to ask additional questions then. So who's this guy? I've been at Google about 3 years as a design manager and design lead in the ad space. I started my design career at Atlassian in 2011, driving design for their ecosystem marketplace, leading some guerrilla user testing, founding the contextual inquiry program, investigating tool usage and context across the Bay. I've got over 10 years experience designing for healthcare, augmented reality, ads, enterprise software, with a focus mainly on interaction and user needs and complex domains, leveraging collaborative design workshops and sprints. And recently I've taken up surfing, and my partner Kayla found this dog at the beach she thought looked just like me. So I've included that as well. At Google, I work on a small but mighty team, sales platform within the broader ads organization. So we have 14 interaction designers, 3 researchers, 3 design managers, and we keep on growing. We enable Google to acquire and manage all ads customers. No big deal. Cool. So Rakesh gave a good sense of this, and it looks like from his poll about 3/4 of you through hook or crook are involved in UX, but I think it bears repeating. Designers do a great deal for a product team, and our team does all this as well. We drive research, we map user needs with partners, we drive empathy. We run workshops, we produce mocks and prototypes to test and explore a solution space. We deliver high fidelity visuals and help engineering build product, ensuring product excellence, and we test, measure, and do it all again, always with an eye on user research and journeys. Okay, that's great, but what are we doing here? Well, today I want to teach you a philosophy and model that you can use to create thoughtful quarterly design allocation, balancing team well-being and managing cross-functional expectations, enabling focused design and high-quality support for the build of great products and happy, long-lasting team. And I'll tell you the story of our team pivoting to this model, some pitfalls we ran into, some tips to take it home with you. And as I mentioned, hopefully this framework can also be extended to some non-design teams as well, and hopefully a little fun along the way. To begin with, we need to jump back to 2018. People are eating Tide Pods. Yanni versus Laurel is firing up the internet. Hawaii is facing annihilation. At Google, however, things were going great for the sales platform team. We were partnering with our PM, engineering, and business counterparts, hashing out what projects we want to do quarterly, and making these prioritized lists of things to do. And at Google, you may know, we formalize our targets in the form of OKRs. O, objectives, are what we want to accomplish, and KRs, or key results, are how we will measure those accomplishments. A whole other talk is needed on OKRs and why they're valuable, but for now you can simply think of them as valuable things to do. And in 2018, with our formal list of OKRs, we felt like our designers had good targets. We had honed in on the things that matter, at least at the project level. 2018 was looking and feeling real good. And this was validated in our one-on-ones. Things seemed normal, our directs seemed happy. It was busy, but seemed like a good busy. 2018 for the win. Then in early 2019, Google Geist results dropped. So Google Geist is an annual survey measuring team health taken by everyone across Google, and it benchmarks your team against your product area and the organization as a whole. And you see a lot of red up here. On well-being, our scores for our team against Google and product area were abysmal. On retention, only 36% of our designers plan to be working in the same team PA the next year. These results really blindsided us. They set off all of our alarm bells. It seemed like an organizational failure and was a very dark moment for us. We call this the oh shit moment. Something was wrong. We didn't know how to act right away. And what's worse, we hadn't created space to let our directs talk about it. we'd unknowingly created a culture of more is better at all costs. So we needed to dig a bit deeper. What was causing this burnout? We had a series of open team discussions led by our UX director, no holds bar. We also had forums for anonymous feedback and met individually with reports. And a theme started to emerge. Too much to do, too high a bar, not enough time to hit that bar. We wanted to look at the numbers to peel the onion a little more. And to understand, we'll talk about the story of one of our designers, Samwise Gamgee. Names obviously redacted here to protect the innocent, but his story is a lot like most people on our team. Sam works hard. He's trying to do what's right for the team. He picks up slack for his coworkers and friends. Sam has a great life at home too, family and friends. And Sam's hungry to tackle work. So let's look at an example of allocations from a quarter back in 2018. Though some project details are changed, this represents a relatively real allocation table in terms of the amount of time of weeks for one of our designers. And Sam's got lots of cool projects here. He's a busy guy. What a rock star. So busy, though, that Sam committed to 17 weeks in a quarter. Look, we did the math. Surprisingly, there are only 12 weeks in a 3-month quarter. Somehow, Sam committed to bending space-time. He committed to 5 more weeks than physically possible. And when you span this work across the year per designer, it gets pretty crazy. We were offering up over 300 weeks of work extra for our designers, 5.5 extra years, an absolutely ridiculous and jaw-droppingly stupid figure. Clearly, our designers were caring too much, committing to too much. They meant well, but they had no way to push back. And as well, we really weren't recognizing a lot of the hidden costs of the workday, meetings, conferences, research. With no way to unplug, even vacations felt like a burden. And despite committing to so much, we were letting a fair deal of it slip through. We missed OKRs, our PM partners got surprised and angry. We didn't have room to focus on any one thing in a deep way. And worse, we missed opportunities to help educate our partners on what design is, not an infinite resource, but a complex and intricate effort that requires focus. And so this brought us to our WTF moment. We were at an impasse, but we recognized an opportunity. And of course, this story is not a Shakespearean tragedy. It's a happy story. So we're going to jump just for a second to the happy part. And don't worry, we'll tell you how we got there. Today, our team is flourishing. We have 87% retention. Our quality of work and impact has never been higher. All 5 designers who went up for promotion last cycle got promoted. And our execution has also led to growth in our team with additional unlocking of hiring. And we've done all this without sacrificing product quality. We're at 82% customer satisfaction for our core tools, an all-time high and unheard of for internal tools generally. And the numbers reflect this. Across key categories of getting work done and well-being, we are scoring far above Google and other product areas in the latest Google Geist. Of course, it is the words of our designers that really gave us confidence in our success. And this is a real quote from one of our designers. If you asked me, do you like your job? A year ago, when we were working 120, 180%, I would have answered with a clear no. Now I say yes. No matter how I might feel about any project, there's something to keep me excited and inspired. Pippin also speaks some truth to the value of these changes. Another quote from one of our designers. Before the team was over-allocated, stretched too thin to meet project timelines. After the change, designers dedicated more time to project brainstorming, workshopping with XFN partners, and usability testing, contributing to higher quality designs. So how did we do it? Was it luck? Was it magic? Was it sorcery? It was a little bit of luck. We were fortunate to ride the wave of some rough Google Geist scores. This was a great forcing function to make big changes. Combined with the support of our UX director to drive better team work-life balance, it meant we could rethink how we were focusing our designers so we didn't wipe them out. And we were luckily able to leverage the experience of our large 200+ sales platform engineering team. They taught us their planning model, how they reserve time for things like meetings, conferences, other obligations, and how they measured individual team member capacity with tenure and leave in mind. So that's all great, cool. Let's get into some of the brass tacks. What does this ultimately look like? If you start with an average quarter, say Q1, you may have about 12 weeks to work, give or take a week. We know that in Q4, it's forget it. 70% of the time in a quarter, we allocate to go to pure design work and projects, and 30% is everything else. So really you have 9 weeks of project work. But it's not 9 weeks for everyone. We adjust for individuals, their tenure, their role, their lives. So for Nooglers, we reserve 2 to 4 weeks for onboarding so they can learn about the product, the team. Nooglers are people new to Google. For managers, at 2 to 3 reports, we assume they can only do about 50% design execution. At 7 to 8 reports, managers go down to 0% design execution. We also consider long vacations, paternity and maternity leave. And how do you get that 9-week list? Well, and some of you may be familiar with this, but our designers get in a room with the cross-functional team around a month before the quarter starts. And the conversation begins. What's relevant for next quarter? What's most important? It's important to have a framework to track things, to write these things down. And you have to size. How big is each design project? Measuring design is an imperfect science, a bit of art. You can use t-shirt sizes, weeks. You can model it at Fibonacci numbers, whatever. The important thing is to get granular. If you have an 8-week project or something that's really large, try to break it down, reducing ambiguity wherever possible. Once you have the numbers, you have to draw some lines in the sand. For us, that's identifying P0 and P1 level projects. P0 or priority 0 projects, we commit to getting done 100%. P1s get done at least 90%, but we usually factor in some amount of ambiguity. But basically, these are hard commitments for a designer in the quarter. The important thing, whatever your system is, that those add up to 9 weeks. And this is perhaps the most important piece of the puzzle. Having that conversation with the partners and developing a shared understanding of what's important and what can be committed to ahead of the quarter. Of course, you can still identify stretch goals. For us, these are P2s, things you can pull in if you have time, if projects shrink, stretch goals for hungry designers, but they're not commitments and they're not the focus of the quarter. So what you get here is really a solid, simple list of what a given designer needs to do in the quarter and the conversation with your partners. Gandalf's, once we've gone into this process, one of our designers really summed it up well here, said, before we went to the new model, I felt like I had to take on everything that came my way. When we switched to 70-30, the team understood that something should get cut down. I feel comfortable pushing back now. Thanks, Gandalf. Okay, that's great. But what about that 30%? Where does that other 3 to 4 weeks go? It goes to growth. It can go to team bonding and events, conferences like this. It goes to community volunteering, to running design workshops, setting vision. It goes to talking to users, spending extra time on research. And I mentioned, but really sometimes you just need space to create vision. You need to sit down and think to understand the future, which you can't do if you're going at a breakneck pace, project after project. We encourage our team to use a personal OKRs framework to put structure on that 30%. So personal OKRs can be focused on individual growth, like becoming a better speaker, cultural contributions, like making every designer's birthday awesome, or even team initiatives, like transitioning to a new design tool. But ultimately, this empowers directs to set their own goals. And when given that opportunity, designers can really flourish. Even Sauron is getting into it, saying, the 70-30 split not only helped with work-life balance, but allowed me to explore pursuits outside of my core responsibilities. In the past year, I've designed branding for 2 departments in Google, collaborated with a new team to drive a new application, and volunteered in my community. So that's great. You have the basics of the model, but in taking it home to your team, there's a lot to think about. And here are some of the biggest things to consider to make it a success, some learnings from when we had to implement this. And again, happy to chat more after our talk today. Nothing can happen without understanding and buy-in with your partners in leadership. Consider road showing the new model with different teams and partners, hooking things to metrics they care about. Consider who you need to convince in your organization. Explain how much better the designs can be with more focus and less rework. Consider the value to the product, as designers can go deep on specific projects. We were lucky to already have the engineering team planning in the same way. Made it easy to make a case for our team. You also need to find allies where you can. There's a lot of communication and convincing involved with changing your system. Our illustrious PGM, Harry Gold, here was invaluable for driving and socializing this new framework. He made sure things were getting done and on time, and drove conversation on this model before, during, and after each and every quarter. He also owned the allocation sheet we showed before. Look to other teams, leaders in different roles, to help drive this model across the org. Also, look, this is kind of difficult for new designers and some seasoned designers, this planning phase. So you need to help them. On our team, we have senior track leads to help juniors during planning meetings. But if you don't have that luxury, you may experiment with junior designers, sizing items a little larger than they may expect to account for that inexperience and ambiguity. Consider overall how you might have some oversight on the full list to ensure designers aren't biting off more than they can chew, and also help designers adjust to this new model. Similarly, create space during the planning phase and in quarter for your designers to let you know if things are getting too heavy. This can, again, be a mind shift for the team. That 9 really deep focused weeks is better than 12 or 14 stretched weeks. Model this behavior yourself in your work and your communication. And although it may be obvious, reinforce an open door with your team to talk about work-life balance. This can also mean stepping up to say no to things. So helping designers find their voice to say no, and opening up that umbrella as a manager and leader to protect them from sort of the layers above. If partners want something and there is no room, challenge those partners. Ask them, who should work this weekend? Sometimes putting a face to the situation can really drive empathy. Of course, you can discuss trade-offs, right? But ultimately, getting down to 9 weeks per designer in an average quarter is the goal. To that end, encourage your designers and partners to flex when needed. You know, you can't bury your head in the sand. You have to sometimes find the right resources if big or urgent things do come up. Within reason, you might want to reallocate, or maybe if someone's working hard for a few weeks, give them room to breathe after. But really key to that is you as managers and leaders being aware of what's happening and how projects are changing. To avoid too many big surprises, also help your designers break apart big projects. So if a designer has 9 weeks of work in a quarter, but it's all in 1 month, it's going to be a bad time. So to this end, we have designers make timelines for medium to large projects, helpful to understand cadence and needs. Help designers build and flex that project manager muscle, which is so important. Map out stakeholder conferences, vacations, and share ownership in reviewing this with your cross-functional team. You know, you don't want your PM to be out for 2 months and then also expect to get all that great feedback from them. As managers and leads, the responsibility falls to you to map the future of the team and to anticipate the needs ahead of time. Consider paternity and maternity leave, consider possible attrition and shifts in organization and need. More focused work does mean that you can't tackle everything. So you have to make a case for more people. You may want to hire ahead if you can, because there is no shortcut to good hiring. And keep in mind, growth and trajectory are different for everyone. Some designers just want product work, and that's okay. Some want to do more than 70%, maybe 11 weeks, and that's okay. As long as they commit, and the important thing is that you're still setting the expectation at 9 weeks for the team. You know, to build that sustainable team, setting that 9-week expectation of success is so key. And look, you need to get comfortable with the ambiguity in the planning process. It does get easier to do over time. It does get faster, but it is an art and a science. You know, take a lesson from our old friend, BoJack Horseman. The only way to get good is to practice and to keep that conversation going with your designers and partners. And remember, most importantly, you are creating some room to breathe. And I apologize if I pronounced this name wrong, but Thich Nhat Hanh says, we have lost the wisdom of genuinely resting and relaxing. We don't allow our bodies to heal. We don't allow our minds and hearts to heal. Depending on where people are at in life and work, they may need time to heal. We need to give them that time to create a happy, loyal, long-lasting team. And as we have seen in our team at Google, it is so worth it. So to wrap up, 4 themes to consider. It's important to let your team know that you are not just hand-waving. Talk is cheap, as we all know. Find out how your partners are managing. You can learn so much by leveraging their experience. And also figure out what balance works for you and your team. This is not a perfect formula. Maybe you want 80-20, maybe you want 60-40. Okay, you need to adjust to the organizational realities that you have and where your focus is on for the team. But ultimately, once again, allow that breathing room for your team to rest, grow, and stay happy. So thank you all. I know we have, maybe a moment for a few questions and answers here. And again, I'll be around for the panel discussion later, but that's all I have for you today.